there is a mindset change towards using AI because people now realize it makes their life and work easier. It is basically taking the radiologists early into responsibility, making them part of the solution,
Yes.
and then showing it is not disturbing the workflow.
Welcome back to Beyond the Byte. The last time I sat down with Dr. Sven Jansen, it was between panels at the Dubai AI conference. Two technologists nerding out over how AI is reshaping medicine as conference attendees and venue staff whiz by. Sven is the CEO of NeoQ and a multi-winner of global innovation awards like the Global Health Innovation and Sustainability Leadership Award in the UK and the Healthcare Innovation Leadership Award in Hong Kong, just to name a few. Sven shared with me how his platform was turning what used to be a 20-minute radiology report into a 35-second AI-assisted breakthrough, empowering radiologists, not replacing them. It was one of those rare conversations where you realize this isn't future talk, it's already happening. But that interview sparked deeper questions. Questions I kept circling back to in later episodes. Questions like, who owns our data, our medical data? And can we trust AI to make life and death decisions one day? Where do we draw the ethical line in a world where algorithms diagnose faster than doctors? In fact, in last week's conversation with Dr. Louis Rosenberg, we explored something eerily complementary: collective intelligence. Rosenberg described how connecting human experts into AI-powered swarms could unlock a form of superintelligence, one that's not artificial, but human at its core. And in a groundbreaking National Science Foundation and Stanford Medical School study, radiologists working as a swarm outperformed AI in rare, complex cases, proving that human wisdom still matters, especially at the edge cases where lives hang in the balance. And that's the crux of today's episode. In this second hour-long conversation with Dr. Jansen, we go beyond the efficiency metrics of AI-assisted radiology and ask the bigger questions. Will AI truly replace radiologists, or will it elevate them? How can we safeguard privacy while accelerating this kind of necessary innovation? And what happens when a machine's calculated logic clashes with a human's ethical and intuitive instincts? NeoQ offers more than faster diagnostics. It offers a model for human-centric AI, the kind of tools that don't erase human expertise, but amplify it. And in this episode, we dig into the ethical foundations and technical challenges, as well as the practical realities of building AI for one of the most sensitive sectors of all: healthcare. But before we dive in, I want to ask you for a favor. If this conversation sparks something for you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe, leave a rating or review, and most importantly, share this episode with someone in your network who's wrestling with the rise of AI in their industry, especially if it's healthcare. And if you've got thoughts on where AI should stop and human judgment should begin, I want to hear those too. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Sven Jansen. Dr. Jansen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mo, for having me again. So I guess I was not too boring when we met the first time in Dubai. So as I said, very happy to be here and very looking forward for our conversation.
Absolutely. No, not boring at all. You were actually one of the people that stood out to me because you had a real absolute use case for AI that is going to transform the way that this particular field of healthcare is performed. And B, you're solving a real world problem. And I think it was fascinating. And you came off as an expert in the field. So what inspired you for the founding of NeoQ? Was there a personal or clinical experience or something that sparked your mission to improve radiology?
Well, the journey started 9 years ago. And actually at that time, it got apparent that on a global scale, so globally, we have an issue in healthcare, because at that point already, and it was 2016, we saw that on one hand, people were getting older. Of course, we know that. We know the demographic shift. We know the baby boomers We know that even specific governments, and at the forefront is the United States and also Saudi Arabia, because they are trying to increase access to healthcare, which is actually a good thing. But when you have more and more people getting older and older and older, they are also getting sicker and sicker and sicker. That means if you also increase access to healthcare, the problem will get worse. So as I said, it's not a problem, it's a good thing to increase access to healthcare. And I mean, in the United States, you have this wonderful theme of, consumer/retail health, where you have players that are actually not deeply rooted in the healthcare system, like CVS, like Amazon, like Walgreens, like Walmart, who actually believe that due to the fact that they know the consumer within the patient a little bit better than the rest, and even better than the healthcare section, they are setting up primary care centers all over the United States. And the theme behind it is bringing care closer to the patient, and especially in underserved areas. So that's a good thing, and in Saudi Arabia, for an example, they believe that they need to change the full infrastructure of healthcare because it was delivered via majorly the government over the last decades. They did not reach, rural areas within the country. So they set up something that is called Saudi Vision 2030, and that includes reaching patients where they live. However, if you do that, and we are still on, let's say, the demand side of healthcare, you also have a supply. So that means you need people to care for these people who are getting older and sicker. And there you see, you have less and less people want to work in healthcare. And there's a variety of reasons. And one reason is definitely the workload, due to the fact that there are more people are seeking care than people who actually can care for them. So that increases the workload per person. You, of course, have work-life balance issues. Yes, of course. If you need to work long hours, if you need to work on the weekends, if you need to work at night, that's for families an issue. In Germany, for an example, when you graduate from med school and you actually get your medical degree, you are at least 30, if not older. And if you see in Germany, 60% of the graduates are women. And then, of course, with 30, they believe we need to think about having a family. And then this is, of course, difficult to basically give their full time to the healthcare system. So on the other hand, in the United States, and that's very interesting, and that's also something that's very specifically linked to radiology, is that there are less and less people who want to study medicine. So I was in Chicago, December 2024 at the RSNA, which is the largest radiology congress in the world. And I had great discussions with my colleagues at Harvard, at Stanford, at Duke and Yale, at MIT. And they all said the number of people who want to study medicine as such dropped by 20 to 30%, depending on the university. However, within radiology, it dropped by over 50%. Because these people say, my job will be done by AI anyway at some point in time. So why should I study something where technology will take over? So that was interesting because it is based on a perception of people who work in a not so bad healthcare system. Let's put it that way. And they believe that AI will take over. However, that means it makes the equation between demand and supply even worse. So if you look at Europe, there is something that went totally wrong in the 1970s and 1980s. At that time, especially in France and in Germany, there were too many people who wanted to study medicine. So they increased barriers to actually be able to enroll into med school. So at 1970s, 80s, that might have been okay. However, the result you see now, there are not enough doctors on the field. So when we started at NeoQ, we saw that 9 years ago. We saw supply and demand is not in balance. And we came up with a theme saying we need to somehow enable the doctors to care for more people in the same time. Otherwise, we will not be able to close the supply and demand gap. And we said, so how can we do that? On one hand, of course, it's time. On the other hand, it's quality. Yeah, you don't want to reduce the time and then you lose the quality. That's something you don't want to do. So we looked into the radiology process or workflow, let's put it that way. And 20% is processing, meaning taking pictures. And the MRIs, the CTs, the X-rays, the ultrasounds, they are as fast as they are.
Yeah.
So GE, Siemens, Aqua might come up with a new scanner and they might be like 0.1 second faster, but at the very end, that doesn't really change anything.
Yeah.
So the major time or the most time consuming part of the radiology workflow is actually doing the reporting.
Yeah.
And that is 80% almost of the workflow. So, and the reporting is done in different ways. You do the pictures in the morning, you do the reporting in the evening, you do the pictures in the morning, you do the reporting next day. There's a huge variety. So that also means there is a lot of chance to, on one hand, make errors or not get all the information you actually need because you don't really remember what patient it was, you don't really remember the circumstances and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And also radiology has a tendency to be very individual driven. So every doctor thinks, and that's still a good thing, thinks the report is special because of his or her language. So because I am an experienced doctor, I know how to write such a report, and the report will actually help the referring physician to do a great job. However, everyone reports in their own language. Everyone uses their own words. At the very end, every report is individual. That's not standardized. It's not machine readable. It's not structured because everyone dictates. Most of the time they are dictating. Some are typing. Some are using templates, of course. But dictation, let's say, especially in the United States, is what's actually happening. So we said, okay, that cannot be the way going forward. You need to be able to actually standardize what is being reported.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to compare because what is happening that 50% of all reports have low quality.
Yeah.
Due to time issues.
There's a lot to digest there. So I want to kind of take a pause here and point out, first of all, that one of the brilliant things about your healthcare solution, Sven, is that it does solve fundamentally a supply and demand problem. And I think that that's very evident. You brought that up a couple of times, and I, it's fascinating that was your mission from the start. You saw a problem not where AI can simply do it better or the technology can do it better. And this might replace some people, but it's okay. No, this was an issue of, no, if we don't have technology here, demand is going to outstrip supply. Absolutely. The writing is on the wall. The interesting thing is there's two factors. One is, technology is getting better. So a lot of the folks that would normally go into radiology are saying, well, maybe I won't. So there's a chicken or egg situation. But at the same time, as you mentioned, we do have an aging population. We have a much bigger population. More people need healthcare, not enough doctors. So there's clearly a supply and demand problem. Therefore, this is where technology comes and helps and augments to help do that. And I think that's the brilliance of the solution, is that you are using technology here to really bridge a gap, bridge a supply and demand gap.
Right.
And the best part about it too is that, and you were just starting to dive into this, so I want to focus on this now, which is NeoQ focuses on structured reporting and guided workflows. And I think that you were alluding to the fact that your approach to this problem is different because it is in aid of the doctor doing the reporting. In other words, it takes the boring parts and the parts that take a long time and automates those, but keeps the doctor or the radiologist as part of the workflow.
Right.
And I think that's what creates that interoperability. But I want to cover that now. So when you talk about these workflows and you're talking about radiologists doing this, what makes your solution different than just any other automated radiology tool out there?
And do you foresee this automation taking the human out of the loop at any time?
That's a very good question. And basically, it's three questions in one. So let me start with the first one, the structured reporting. You could argue that there is structured reporting out there. People are using templates, which is a good thing. So because they say, if I do mammography screening, it's always the same thing I need to report. So why don't we just put that in a template and then we fill out the template and then that's it. And then that's structured. And at some point it might be machine readable. Well, when you look at the mammogram, you will not always only see tumors. You will also see something else, traumas, maybe tissue that is, degenerated and so on. This does not fit in a mammography template. That means for everything that you will then see, you need to open up a new template. And then this will take time. So we said, we will not go with templates. This is not the way forward. That's too complicated and it will actually slow down the radiologist and will not increase the speed and the quality of the report. Second question is, there are companies out there, especially in the United States, Red AI, Red Pair, and so on. They're doing great stuff. They actually say, let the radiologist dictate whatever they want to dictate. I just take the output and then I structure it.
Yeah.
However, that does not slow down the process because it still needs the dictation of a radiologist. And today, the average time it takes to create a report is about 20 minutes. So brain might take longer, angio might take longer, knee normal finding will take way less, 5 minutes, if at all. However, the average time is 20 minutes. And we said we need to significantly reduce that in our solution. And here it comes, because you mentioned human in the loop and you mentioned AI. Without AI, we started without AI 9 years ago because AI was not a big thing 9 years ago. So we said, we don't use AI. However, we can still reduce the time to create a report to 35 to maximum 60 seconds. That would mean you can do way more reports within the same time frame.
Yeah.
How we did that is simply we developed a huge decision tree. Every decision a radiologist can ever take in MRI, in CT, in X-ray is around 36 million decisions. And we coded that into a decision tree saying that's all the radiologist will ever decide on. And we said, we need to take out the boring things. So everything that is where you need to say, I don't see anything, I don't see anything, I don't see anything, that's done automatically. Why should the radiologist do that? And the rest is basically a questionnaire, like a checklist of a pilot, starting an interaction with the radiologist saying, do you use contrast agent? Do you see this? No. Do you see that? Yes. How big is it? Okay, fine, done. So the way the workflow is not changed. The radiologist looks at the picture always in a specific way. They start from top to down, or they start on specific regions. That's all coded in the software. So the workflow for the radiologist stays the same. However, everything that is already being reported by the PACS machine and so on is pre-filled into the reporting. So they don't need to worry anymore. It's a male, it's 55 years old, it's around 100 kilograms. That's already pre-filled. So all the boring stuff is out.
Yeah.
And then we came to the point saying, well, now AI is coming up. Like 2022, it started.
Yeah.
So we said we need to focus on this AI piece because the AI can do things way before the radiologist sees the picture. So why don't we use AI and discover tumors, for an example, measure the sizes of the tumors and put that directly into the report? Because then the radiologist just needs to look at the pictures, looks at what the AI detected and what has been transferred to the report already. And then he can say, or she can say, yes, no, I want to adjust. I believe, I do not believe, I want to take it out. But it is directly integrated into the workflow because today the AI creates reports or printouts or result sheets. And if you use more than one AI, every AI has a different result sheet. So the radiologist needs to look at 4, 5, 6 result sheets, has not worked with them before, and then needs to transfer that information into the report. This will not work. It will slow down the radiologist. So we said, why don't we pre-fill? So then the radiologist can decide if he or she wants to have it in. And it's an explanatory AI. It says, I did
I've seen this.
detect
I
something.
detect this.
I detect this. And because of, I
Mm.
think it's a tumor. And then you
Yeah.
can still decide yes or no.
Right.
So it's not taking the human out of the loop. It's more like a co-pilot. I know that's a largely and widely used word, but it is someone, your companion, your
Yes.
agent you
Yes.
can work with.
Yes, and I believe there was a report that I can't cite it now, but it talked about how doctors who were diagnosing certain things without any AI assistance versus doctors who were doing it with AI assistance had much better percentages. But the key is that human machine interoperability, right? In other words,
Mhm.
I've also read in that same report that some doctors, the ones that didn't trust the results of the AI, actually ended up being way worse than all the groups. In other words, the ones that had AI assistance and went against it or refused it were way worse. So this idea of there are going to be rare cases where a doctor's going to say no because or what have you. This is where the doctor's intuition comes into place. But AI absolutely does enhance that decision making. It'll notice things that right away that will make the doctor's job a lot easier. And
Yes.
so blending both and using both is really the way to go. So now, can you share with us a moment when you realized that this really is the future of radiology, a use case, or how has it been perceived in some of the places that you have brought this technology and this capability?
Yeah. The main issue, and that's interesting because it's not a technology issue. The main issue of refusing AI and not trusting AI is because it is most of the time not fully integrated into the workflow. It is an add-on rather than being a part of. And I think that is the main issue why many people distrust AI. And I had a huge discussion on this 2 weeks ago in Dubai at the Harriet Watts University, where there was a global symposium on AI in healthcare. And it has, of course, something to do also with, with leadership and basically taking the radiologists early up into the process that you want to implement. So not leaving them as being a receiver of a new solution rather than making them a part of the new solution. And if you do that, you have evangelists who actually then promote the solution.
Yes.
So I give you a very good example, maybe again, not from the United States, just to see that we have the global challenges everywhere. In Saudi Arabia and especially in all Middle Eastern countries, probably definitely very pronounced in United Arab Emirates, but also in Saudi Arabia, is they have AI ministers. So they have a responsible person for AI in the ministry. And these ministers, they say, we need people in the industry that we can talk to, and we want them in all industries. So you want them in finance, you want them in automotive and manufacturing, in finance, and in healthcare. So what is happening there is that you have AI officers or sometimes AI and data officers in every hospital.
Yeah.
So I talked to the AI and data officer at the King Faisal Specialty Hospital Research Center in Riyadh months ago. And he said, when I started my job here 6 months ago, it was a nightmare. Everyone was saying, we don't want AI, leave me alone, this will not work, and so on. 6 months later, they are telling him every week, we have 3 or 4 solutions we want to get implemented, we want to have implemented, and you need to do it. And if you don't do it, we get angry with you. So there is a mindset change towards using AI because people now realize it makes their life and work easier. However, this is, of course, a cultural thing. If I would look at Germany, no chance. We don't have any AI minister. We have a digital minister something. It's not really digital. So it's a cultural thing. It is basically taking the radiologists early into responsibility, making them part of the solution, and then showing it is not disturbing the workflow. I think that's the 3 major points you need to have in the back of your head if you want to implement something like this.
Well said, Sven. I mean, incorporating AI is a human problem. It's not a technology problem. a lot of the clients I work with, when we talk about AI strategy, say, look, the tool is the tool. It's very powerful in the right hands, but you can introduce it and your people can absolutely reject it or not use it correctly, or if they were not involved from the beginning, they won't be invested in it. They won't actually use it. And so the AI strategy can fail on the ground. It can be, a great idea in the boardroom. But when implemented with people, if you don't have them kind of as part of that process from the beginning, then it'll fall flat. And I think you said it well, which is, they need to be a part of that conversation. It's humans need to figure out how to use this new technology, what we call the human machine collaboration playbook. And I think it makes a huge difference. So, but it's good that I think people are now, it sounds like they are starting to realize that they need to do this. And in places like Saudi, where at first they were fearing it, they now seem to be embracing it. What do you think has created that mindset shift? Do you think it's as a result of the hype? And we know, this hype as a service right now, AI is really very highly hyped, but for good reason. It's a very powerful technology. But what do you think has shifted people's mindsets from fear to more towards acceptance, or maybe on a state level, right, or on a national level?
That's a very good question, because I tell you first what it was not. So it was not the chance to be faster at a higher quality. That was not the reason why they are basically now turning towards or using AI solutions now. It was the reason that the developers of AI understood the issues and problems, especially clinicians had when using AI, and started to build AI models that, on one hand, incorporated a larger population. So there was the tendency to have less bias in the AI results, because the population they were trained on, or the use cases they were trained on, were broader and broader and broader over time, because there was no more data available. The second one is, and that's a huge topic that will definitely be of more importance going forward, is the ethics. So AI is now trained with ethical, let's say, ethical mindsets from the various, let's say, industries it is implemented on. So an AI does not say it is black or white. It says, in this case, it is gray, because it is performed at a specific space or place or region with a specific focus. And then we need to apply specific ethics to it. And that made the result, I would say, more human and more understandable. And it was not a machine that basically brought a result to the clinician. It was more like, it's almost a human, but because he or she understands me, and that gives me the comfort that I trust it. And this is something that will definitely come up going forward, because there are huge discussions going on a global level on terms of, do we need to regulate AI? And regulation of AI, you can do in two different ways. You can do it like like Europe did it with the EU AI Act.
Yeah.
And this is typical Europe, especially Germany, Austria, Switzerland. When we want to regulate something, we want to regulate the whole thing. So it needs to be 800 pages, and it needs to be very well thought through, and so on and so forth. However, this will most likely not work everywhere. So the discussion on a global level, and I had a discussion 6 weeks ago in Dubai, we need to regulate use cases. We need to regulate a specific use case. We should not regulate AI as such, because then this might come to the point that we are restricting AI of doing good things. So let's look at the use case, and even let's go to even like a level up and say, so if AI is regulated on a use case, so who oversees that use case and regulates the use case? So why should we not have AI models that regulate AI? And if these models then incorporate ethics, it is something that people are more eager to trust than when it's just, a black and white or yes and no decision.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an interesting point, because you brought up ethics, and there's obviously, when we're talking about AI, ethics goes hand in hand, because we are, as Dr. Luciano Paludi mentions in a lot of his books about the ethics of AI, that AI is a third order technology. The idea that it is one step removed from us. Once we automate it, it then does things on its own, versus a traditional tool, which needs to be wielded, right? Like a regular tool by a human, that's a second order technology, because you're holding the tool, you're doing something with the tool. Once you stop doing something, the tool stops doing something. In this case, the tool can continue to act independently. So this is obviously very, very interesting from an ethics perspective, not just because of, and you mentioned bias in data and things like that. We know that these are things that, are going to come up. Bias is inevitable. That this is not an issue. It's the fact that we're going to try to mitigate bias through better data, et cetera. But it's this idea of giving up a certain autonomy, right? We are giving up something that we humans used to do to a machine. And you mentioned AI like being the oversight of the other AI, right? And so this is the part where are we going to then, as as a species, as doctors, atrophy certain muscles that we can let AI take over? And then also, how do we ensure that we keep that human aspect of things, that particular aspect that allows us that kind of true inspiration, that allows us to look at a situation, take in all of our experiences, and be able to make a judgment call that AI might not agree with, if that makes sense, or we might not agree with AI. Like, where do we draw the line between, hey, this thing is flawless, it makes no mistakes, we've automated it, it's even got ethics checked, between that and a human going, no, in this particular case, I don't think that's the right call. How do we keep that line clear and not gray?
This is a very good question. And I will try to answer that question with starting with a small anecdote again.
Okay.
That somehow struck me. It was also, again, Dubai. You see, I'm in Dubai quite often, but there are so many things happening there. So you should there be quite often if you want to be at the forefront of innovation. And it was in January before the Arab Health, and it was the Dubai AI Week. And every day there was a focus on a specific industry. 2 days were focused on healthcare. So you see the importance. And we had a huge discussion at Fahi University Hospital, at the Silicon Oasis in Dubai. And we had a room full of radiologists, 300 in the auditorium. And I had a very brave and bright young man sitting next to me, definitely 10 to 15 years younger than I was, had 2 PhDs, one in data science and one in AI. And there was the question from the auditorium saying, will we all be jobless in a couple of years? And we discussed the human in the loop, and we discussed all that. So this is a tricky question, especially when you're in medical imaging. Yeah. And he said, yes, most likely, but don't worry. There will be other tasks you need to do. And I will give you an example. And he gave this brilliant example, and that is the answer to your question. He says, let's take the following example. You have an AI and you have a doctor, and you have 2 ladies. On both of them, there was a mammogram performed. So let the AI look at the pictures, let the radiologist look at the picture, and then let them give us the result. The AI said both pictures, so one of each lady.
Yeah.
It is BI-RADS score 1. BI-RADS score is the score that you apply in mammography to show the severity of, if there is let's say, a very early beginning or a very early stage of a tumor or not. So BI-RADS score 1 basically means there's nothing, we don't need to do anything. So the AI result was both pictures, BI-RADS score 1. The doctor looked at the pictures and said, the picture 1 is BI-RADS score 1, the picture 2 is BI-RADS score 2. And then the AI said, why? I don't see a difference. And then the doctor said, you're right, you do not see a difference. However, the first picture was taken from a lady that's 70 years old. Within that age, the calcification, everything I see in the picture is fully okay. That's bias score 1. The second picture was taken from a lady that's 20 years old. There, the calcification is not okay. So therefore, it is bias score 2. By telling that story, it got clear that the AI needs medical knowledge to perform at the same level than a human clinician. And this is something the AI today cannot do so far. So that's where you definitely need to have this intuition. You need to have the long years of being a doctor, having seen so many people.
Yeah.
So that inspired us to say, that's great. So why don't we use an AI that is not able to classify two different people because it simply does not know or doesn't have the medical knowledge, and take that output and let it run through our 36 million decision tree software.
Yes.
Basically enabling the AI to get medical knowledge. And we did something which you should not do. So we said, take a chest X-ray and give that chest X-ray to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, can you please perform a report? The output was, as expected, less than 20% correct, which is okay. So we then took the prompt and the 20% output and then let it run through our decision trees, and we came up with 95%. So we showed that it is possible to enhance an AI that normally can only say yes or no, black or white, 1 or 2, with this specific knowledge. And then it's where it actually gets interesting, because that might scare people. So we said, it cannot be this, the AI is just as good as a doctor. It needs to be an interaction. So we designed our product to be a conversation person for the doctor. So they could exchange. So the AI said, I see something here. What do you think? No, I disagree. Fine. However, you coded this and this and this. In 90% of the cases, if you code these 3 things, there is a fourth thing that you might have missed. Please have a look again. I'm not telling you there is something. I tell you, please have a look. And by creating this, I would always almost say human interaction, it's a complete different story again. And that is what the guy meant, saying you will not lose your job. You will need to do something else. So what he meant is, people who will not use AI will be replaced by people who use AI. But the usage of AI is different than just being, relating to the AI result without being able to say anything. It is more of an interaction. And I think this is where we need to go.
That's amazing. It is absolutely where we need to go. And you are talking about that human-machine collaboration. I mean, it absolutely, it is when you have it as a conversation rather than the tool says this, yes or no. This is more of a, hey, take a look at this. I've noticed this. It's like having another doctor there that you can bounce ideas off of, but that other doctor is an AI-assisted tool. So that's a great way to do it, Sven. And I want to cover ethics just a little bit more because it is a pretty big topic, especially when we talk about healthcare. Now, I know, obviously, you guys, NeoQ, you're based out of Germany, I believe. And so, as a European company, I'm sure, we talk about how Europe is the model for ethics. I mean, they ethics for them is number one. So with that, how do you approach data ethics, especially when we talk about sensitive medical scans? When you guys are, with NeoQ, who owns the data to improve the systems? Is it the patients themselves, the hospitals, NeoQ? How do you ensure that this data is safe?
Okay, so the good thing is at the very beginning where there was no AI, let's start at, 2016, AI was not in place. We just wanted to basically supply the market with a new solution that can create reports faster and at a higher quality. So at that point, data was not really an issue. to be open and honest, because we just needed the input of the radiologist.
Yeah.
That was it. So the data stayed with the hospital. It never left the hospital. When it was in the cloud, it was a cloud in Germany or in Europe, depending on where you are. It didn't go anywhere. Fine, because we didn't really need the data. And then we realized, saying, well, but this is a huge, let's say, impact that we might have if we use that data. Because today, in a world where everyone does their own reporting, and there's no structured data and not machine-readable data, no one actually knows what is happening in the radiology department. So the large companies like teletracking, like GE, like Dedalus, who have command centers, basically a huge command center, like a tower on the airport, where they have 16 to 30 screens in one room and people looking at the screen saying, okay, there's an ambulance coming in. I know the patient who's in there already. I know what will be the triage. I know where that person needs to go. And they're actually, on a very high level modeling the patient flow already before the patient is there.
I see. Yeah.
And then it comes to the radiology department. It's a black hole. No one knows anything. No one knows how long the reporting does. No one knows how long the machine needs, and so on. Nothing. So we said, why don't we take advantage of this data? Every decision a radiologist takes within our software is a data point in the database. So at the very end, and this is something that's twofold. One fold is, you know what's going on, and you know which department performs how good, and what radiologist performed at what level. And it also shows you, oh, there's someone that's good at knee, and there's another one that's good at shoulder. So fine, why should we not, everyone that wears a shoulder exam, steer that shoulder exam to that specific person?
Yeah.
On the other hand, and now it comes to the age of AI. So we see in the system, whenever a radiologist deviates from the AI result, saying, no, I will not use it. So we see if many doctors are doing that, the AI might not perform quite well at that specific hospital.
Yeah.
So we had a recent example only last week in Abu Dhabi, where they used an AI in a hospital, and from one to the next day, it did not perform anymore. And we were not sure what the reason is. And then we looked at the data, and it got apparent that the AI was trained at least 60% on Siemens PACS systems, and they switched to GE. So the GE PACS is as good as the Siemens PACS. That's not an issue. And also the scanners behind it, they are as good. So you can use a Siemens MRI or a GE MRI. But the way how the AI was trained on which machine made a difference on the performance.
Of course.
So we then had the data and played it back to the AI vendor, saying you need to AI for that specific hospital because they changed the MRIs, changed the PACS system.
Yes.
So the data behind it got even more important than before. So we now today have clients who say, I don't care if you're faster. I'm over-exaggerating now. I don't care if you have a higher quality. I want the data. Because the first time I know what is happening in the department.
And what's going on. You're reminding me of the late Steve Jobs, who talked about how if you don't measure all of this, it's all just a big, well, we don't know. It's a big black box. Once they get there, as you mentioned, black hole, no idea. And it's because nobody was measuring this data. And when you can measure that data, at that point, you can actually say, okay, we can see patterns here. At that point, we're not coming in with zero knowledge. We're coming in with a lot of knowledge already that can help diagnose things faster and better. So going back to the question, though, that means that, so this data is, you're using data for the purpose, and that's it. And this is kind of what, I think you were alluding to, is that it's not about collecting data and for the sake of having all this private information. It's data collected for a purpose, for this specific purpose, to improve process, to improve workflow. And then everything else beyond that is anonymized, stripped, so that way it doesn't have any significance in a privacy-related manner. How how do you? Oh, sorry. Did you?
Yeah, it's you're spot on. And
Yeah.
we actually initiated a discussion that would never have been initiated if we would not have brought up that point
Yes.
in United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
Because when you go to the hospital, it's the same than it is in Germany and the same than it is US. The data needs to stay local.
Yeah.
There are variations, but basically it needs to stay local.
Yes.
However, if you belong to the royal family in UAE, the data is even more protected.
Hmm.
So they told us, well, you can do with the patient data and you can work with the patient data here for a purpose because it's anonymized. That's fine. You will never get access to the data of the royal family. And then we said, fine. So they are excluded from taking benefit of an AI that might detect something a human will not detect.
Interesting, but that's because they are so private about that data that they'd rather not even. So they're missing out on the benefits, but that's the cost of the privacy here. Interesting.
Exactly. So now there is a discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know where it will take us and what the outcome will be, but at least there is a discussion.
Yeah.
It is the same discussion at some point in time, I think a year ago, where big universities in the United States, at least I think I remember Stanford, but there might be others, who said, I will exclude my publications from being used by ChatGPT or any AI, because that's my IP. It has been done within the university with money of the university or with sponsor money, no chance. And then there was a big discussion afterwards saying, is that ethical to do so? Because you might exclude information that might help some people somewhere in the world.
Yes. Yeah. And speaking of which, actually, and this is another question I had, which is how do you guys handle algorithmic bias, right? In terms of, how do you train or validate this system that you've built across different ethnicities, different body types, different scan variations? I mean, this obviously every human is different. So these scans, are bound to have this bias. And this is an example of it.
Definitely. The good thing is we don't have our own AI. We have decision trees with medical information.
Yes.
And we know that there are a huge number of Gen AI models out there. And their performance is open and honestly quite different depending on pathology, depending on body region. So I'm making this up now. This is not true what I'm saying now, but Llama might be good for chest X-ray, while ChatGPT might be good for knee MRI, while Claude might be good for head CT.
See.
So we see that different models are
because they're trained on different data sets. So some of them have better data than others in particular domains.
Right. You could use all of the mentioned AI solution for all body parts, of course, but the result will be different. So the thing is that, and make this up again, ChatGPT might, give you an output of 20% accuracy on knee MRI and a 40% accuracy on chest CT, while Claude is vice versa. So yes, they were trained on different body sets. However, they are able to report on anything out there, but with different outputs. Meaning, if you want to exclude, bias, if you want to exclude many things, the data needs to be enriched. And what we did then, and that's, I think, still remarkable, and I still don't know why Google didn't call us or Meta or OpenAI, but what we said, especially in orphan diseases and rare diseases, there is a lack of data and there is a lack of pictures. However, if there is an orphan disease, something that rarely happens, once in a million, we know how the report needs to look like. So why don't we use perfect reports and play them the other way through our decision trees and create synthetic images, which with you can then train AI. And that's what we're doing at the moment. And with doing so, you're taking out the bias because the report is structured. It does not, carry any information that should not be in there. So I think that's the future. It's
absolutely. Yeah, we talk about the problem with data is that historical data is going to carry with it a bias. But what you're doing is you're building your own set of synthetic data, and synthetic data is beautiful because it's built by rules rather than historical. It's not statistical. It is at that point now you're taking a lot of this statistical modeling, and then you're adding to it essentially that decision tree is a gamified structure that gets the system to come up with its own data sets, which is very, very, very interesting and clean. It's a much cleaner way of acquiring data.
Exactly.
So let's, I think it's only going to get better, and this is one of those things that we talk about with AI, whether it's AI in healthcare or AI in media or AI in finance. What we have now is the worst that it's ever going to be. And it's only going to improve. So I want us to put our future hat on now and start thinking about how this technology and this process will change things over the next couple of years. You mentioned Saudi Arabia is one of the countries that is focused on this Vision 2030. And over the next 4 or 5 years, it's projected that AI is going to be incorporated in almost every aspect of our lives. It's already doing that. But as we build it into healthcare, as we build it into finance, more and more, it's going to change things fundamentally. Do you believe that AI will reach a point where it can replace human nuances, a radiologist's judgment, or is the future always going to be hybrid?
I'll answer again with an example or anecdote, because I think that makes it a bit more, plastical to, you can
use cases are always exactly.
Yeah. So there, because that shift that you are describing, it will not be from one day to the next day. It will be a shift over years, especially when it comes to will an AI replace or will it still be a companion? This will be a long way, especially in healthcare. But there is a staged approach to this process. And you mentioned Saudi Arabia. And what you need to do in Saudi Arabia, and you need to do the same thing in Dubai, if you want to get a residency there, if you want to live there, you need to do 2 things and show it to the government. One is a blood test to exclude HIV and a chest X-ray to exclude tuberculosis. So for the Western world, we say, but tuberculosis is not really existing anymore. Down there, they have an issue with it. So when I lived in Dubai for 5 years, I need to do the same thing every 3 years. So I know what I'm talking about. And they came to the point saying, well, why should doctors look at the pictures where an AI has pre-analyzed the picture and says there is no tuberculosis? So they followed that path. And today, in Saudi Arabia, also in Dubai, there is an AI looking at the chest X-rays. And if the AI says there is no chest, there is no tuberculosis, there's no doctor looking at the pictures anymore. And this is what I mean with staged approach. This is one use case now.
Yes.
There's a use case where doctors are excluded. However, they are still included because they need to look at the pictures where the AI says there is something or I don't know.
I see. Yes.
So this is a graduate approach to it. And I think this is something we will see globally. It will develop, especially in the countries where there is a different culture to use AI, as I mentioned before. It will be less pronounced in very, let's say, historical, classical situations, like Germany, Austria, Switzerland. That will take a while until we actually address these use cases. But on the other hand, even in Germany, there was a lovely report asking radiologists, do you use ChatGPT to create your report? 20% said yes. And there is a gray zone.
Yeah.
So you see the new generation in terms of mindset are already on the way. And this will, when they get to a position where they have the decision power, it will change how we use AI going forward. It will still be, as I said, a staged approach. It will take longer and it's fine, but we are on the way already going into that direction. It's going to be interesting to see what that actually does with us, because when we move into that direction, there are a different question we need to ask ourselves. So, will it change how we interact with technology? transhumanism, neo-humanism, it will change fundamentally the culture and how we live together. So
Yeah.
there are psychological aspects in it as well.
I have one more hard question for you, Sven, which is,
Okay.
what ethical line would you never cross when it comes to automating healthcare decisions?
I would never cross the line where a machine out of itself will create a report, and I will not at some point and with some technique question it. I think we are not at that stage at the moment. So when there is an autonomous decision without any human in the loop, at least in some point in time, this will, I think, not work because we will not accept it. I think the way until we accept that will take. The interesting thing is, and I'm going back to conservative Germany, there was a big study from one of the largest banks over here, and that bank is specifically known to be the bank for doctors, for physicians, for pharmacists. And they made a study in asking the question, will you rely on a 60-year-old doctor with gray hair and a lot of experience more than to a younger, in this case, a lady with a database behind her? So there are two pictures, one actually older doctor looking very smart and very experienced, and the younger one with the iPad in her hand. And if you look at the age groups, it dropped at 55, 60 years of age, it dropped. Over 55 was more on the doctor's side, while the rest was more on the lady's side. So you see there is a movement.
Yes.
There is a movement coming. And of course, we are still in a phase where the aging pyramid is stronger at older ages. But the younger persons who are coming have a different mindset. And this will change the way how we will use AI in any industry, but especially also in healthcare.
That's very insightful, actually, Sven, very much so. What is one message that you would want to leave policymakers, healthcare leaders about responsible AI in radiology and in healthcare in general?
Don't ban something because you don't understand it. Try to understand it and then see if it should be regulated, yes or no. And I say that because Germany and Italy first, then Germany thought about banning ChatGPT from being accessible in their countries. So Italy actually banned it for a couple of days. Germany wanted to do it, so it did not happen, which is a good thing. Last week, the king of Dubai announced that they will give the ChatGPT Pro version free of charge to everyone
all their citizens
living in Dubai.
Yeah.
So from some countries, and that's 2 years ago, trying to ban something to will give it to everyone, that's a huge thing.
Huge. No, the AI revolution is here. I think a lot of people are still very much skeptical. They think it's hype. And to be fair, AI has gone through winters before where there were times it was, everybody thought it was going to be amazing, and then it kind of subsided. But the capabilities today are undeniable, and it's obvious that the shift is coming, and we're seeing some really amazing things. And kudos to you and NeoQ for really truly being ahead of it, for helping solve the upcoming gap between demand and supply. I think that this is going to do some phenomenal things for the world, for underserved communities, for improving healthcare. I mean, healthcare is nowadays really not accessible to a lot of people, and we are trying to make it accessible to more and more people, and make it better and more accurate. So it's fantastic. Sven, thank you so much for coming again on the show, for talking about what you're doing with NeoQ. It's been a pleasure. You're a brilliant man, and I appreciate your insights about AI in healthcare and AI in radiology. Pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much, Mo. I'm very happy to come back again as often as you want, because the discussions with you are always, so delighting, and you ask so good questions that need to be asked, really, and are not asked by many other people. So I think it's a very good podcast. So thank you very much for having me.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Jansen. And if you've enjoyed this show, please comment below, like, subscribe. We're going to have some of the links for Dr. Jansen's NeoQ, and so you can find out more information in the descriptions. And let me know what you think in the comments. How do you see AI in healthcare today? Other than that, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.